Hi, this is David Kirshner from West Hempstead Echo. I'm here with Adam Dichter, and I'm here with Shimon Metz, who is a longtime resident of West Hempstead and who has a daughter in Israel. This is a special broadcast where we want to discuss the impact of what's happening in Israel and how it is impacting those of us who live in the community. And I'll turn this call now over to Adam.
Hi, Shimon. I know that, like a lot of us, you found out about this unfolding catastrophe. It's the only way to describe it in Israel over the holiday. Can you walk us through how you found out and what went through your mind?
How I found out was I walked into synagogue on Sunday morning, I believe it was, and someone that I know came over to me and said, "Have you heard about the war?" And I turned to him and said, "War? What war?" And he started telling me about paragliders coming over and rockets into Sderot from Gaza. And I looked at him, I'm like, "Get out of here." It was disbelief was my first reaction. It was just something that was just too hard to comprehend immediately. Um, that's how I found out.
And were you able to get in touch with your daughter at all prior to the end of the holiday? It was a 2-day holiday. It must have been very difficult.
Yeah, so what happened is a friend of Jolie's grandmother, who was friends with my mother-in-law and my wife's family, actually drove over to our house and left a note on our door to let us know that Jolie was okay.
I know she has recently served in the military. I don't know what her status in the military is right now. Of course, in Israel, you're never completely off duty. Anybody can be activated. Tell us about her service and how she's being affected right now.
So she served 2 years in the army in the north near the Lebanon border, and she was a combat support medic. So her duties included both serving the soldiers on the base in the infirmary, as well as being called out of the base on an ambulance to service soldiers as well as the local communities. And she concluded her service in, I believe it's November of 2021. Um, Currently, Israeli bureaucracy is famous, and she was just informed that for some reason she had an exemption from reserve duty, but she obviously wanted to forego that. And they said that if a unit requests her, they can find a way for her to serve. So she's been in touch with her former unit, and they said that they'll try to get her in. Reservists are now, at least medics are serving in weekly shifts. And so if they can get her in possibly next week, that might happen. And again, that would be up in the north, where apparently, as we speak, there are new developments happening, which she's pretty distressed about.
What are your feelings right now, just as a father, as this is happening and being so far away?
I'm appropriately concerned, I think. I was just there a month ago visiting, so I did get to see her recently. And I can only imagine, what would have happened if I had not gone when I did. Um, right now, she's physically safe, safe, relatively speaking. She's in Ra'anana right now, which is, it's a small country, but she's not in any immediate range of anything. Um, but she could theoretically be traveling up north. Um, Strangely enough, even while she was actively serving, I wasn't, very afraid for her safety. I don't know why. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's just faith. Um, but I think I'm appropriately concerned. As I'm concerned for everybody there.
How did growing up in the West Hempstead community and in the Jewish community here affect your daughter's decision to immigrate to Israel?
Well, she went to some Zionist schools. Like most people. Her mother also was very, very Zionist, having spent part of her childhood in Israel. Her grandmother is Israeli, so she grew up having Hebrew spoken in the home, and she developed a very strong Zionist outlook. And she originally her plan was to go to Israel and come back for college, and then she decided to stay there.
And what has been the reaction from the West Hempstead community, all the people that you know here who know you have a daughter there, people reaching out, checking in, showing support? I know there's been a lot of pro-Israel
Yes,
events organized here in the last
yes, people.
days that you've been part of. What have you heard from your neighbors here in the community?
Everybody's been very supportive. Everybody's been checking to ask how she's doing. And there are other people in West Hempstead who have children who are actively serving right now. And, everybody's been um, very concerned, very supportive. And I think the local community has a very strong Zionist perspective.
Shimon, the trying to put things in a little bit of a historical context as we wrap this up. I was certainly old enough. I was 12 years old when the rabbi of my synagogue came in and announced that we had the Yom Kippur War. And I will never forget that exact moment, and it's been burned into my mind. Like you, I had a similar experience when I found out about what was going on currently. I am also the product of a Holocaust survivor and a World War II veteran. So I grew up in an environment that has seen the darkest days and the worst that people have had to endure. Do you have thoughts of the historical context of what we're going through right now, or do you really think this is just yet another, skirmish that's taking place, in the south of Israel?
I think the axiom that history repeats itself is true, and it may evolve slightly. In the past, the wars were between sovereign countries, and now the war is against the terrorist organization, while the sovereign countries are kind of sitting back and watching what's going to happen. So it's no less a war than the previous wars, but it's just as important and just as precarious, I think. And as history repeats itself, hopefully we will be victorious again, as we were in the past. And I think that Israel being united will help it to be strong. I think that the enemy capitalized on the recent divisions that were going on within Israeli society, and that's unfortunate. But I think it's bouncing back, and I think that will be to our benefit.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shimon. And we hope only for the best for all the people of Israel and all of our relatives and friends and family over there. We should only have peace, and
Amen.
your daughter's work as a medic hopefully will only be restricted to delivering babies in the future.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Shimon. We really appreciate your time coming on West Hempstead Echo, and we only want to hear good things in the future.